Welcome to Cybersecurity Workshops. This is David Raymond, and today we're going to talk about command redirection. So we're continuing this series of lessons on the command line interface, and this is a course in the courseware repository authored by Matthew Vogel from Tidewater Community College, and we're on lesson 4 talking about using or working with Linux commands. And so we've gotten through the first few lessons here. This is probably the most useful one so far is the getting help discussion. So that talks about using commands like the manual pages and the help command and the info command. This time we're going to talk about command redirection, which is another important thing to talk about when using the command line. So we'll jump right in here. Command redirection. So we're going to understand some terms that you'll hear when system administrators or Linux users use Linux. They'll talk about things like standard out and standard in and standard error. And these are sort of shortcuts for these are sort of shortcuts for example, for standard out. This is the standard output device for output, for textual output. And standard in is sort of the same idea, the standard input mechanism, and we'll see this here in a minute. And then we'll use the pipe command. So we use the pipe command way back in, I think, early module 2 to do some things, but we're gonna look at the redirect command, then we're gonna look at the pipe command. And the pipe command is really helpful. You'll use that a lot. So I'm going to spend an extra minute or so on that discussion, so to make sure that people know how to use it. And then we'll take a look at the T command. All right, standard out. When you run a command that generates output, the output is sent to standard out, which is the default output device. And if you're using the terminal window, the standard output device is going to be the terminal window. So the output is displayed on the command line interface. You can redirect the output to standard out to a file. So when you do something at the command line on the terminal window, the standard output is going to show up in the terminal window. Sometimes you want, instead of having the standard output show up on the terminal window, sometimes you want it to go to a file, and so you can use the redirect characters, and we've seen these before, but didn't talk a lot about them. There's two different redirect characters. There's the single redirect, and that's going to create or overwrite a file with the new data that you're sending from standard out. Or you can use a double redirect, and that's going to append the file. So single redirect will send the output to a file and overwrite any text that's already in the file. Overwrite any text that's already in the file. If no file exists, the file will be created. The double redirect character will append the output to any text already in the file. Okay. When you redirect output to a file, you'll not see anything in the CLI. So here's an example here. Doing the who am I, and we know we should get. We're in an Ubuntu Linux virtual machine in the Virginia Cyber Range, or if I type who am I, I'm going to get student, or I can redirect who am I to a file called my name. And so we'll just do that really quick. Who am I? Or I can say who am I, and I can redirect to my name. And I get, you notice there was no input, there's no output to standard out when I did that. And so now if I say cat, my name, there's my name, right? And I created this new file when I did that, my name. I'm gonna remove this thing called error file. Okay. So that's the redirect, single redirect. Okay. Standard in is when I have a command that needs input, and the input would normally be given using standard in. If I'm typing at the command line interface, the standard input device is the keyboard, right? I'm typing, and so the keyboard is the standard input. Well, sometimes I want want to have to type things. I want to redirect things from a file, for example. And so in this example, okay, so and I use the less than sign. So that's a redirect from standard in is the less than sign. So here we say the WC command is for word count. So that's going to count words in a file. And if you give word count the -L option, it's going to count the number of lines instead of the number of words. And here we're doing the redirect, and we're redirecting this from a file called names. And so this example, presumably there's a file called names that has 7 names in it or 7 lines. So let's do this using a different file. We'll do it using, because there's really no file. Well, I could do it with my name, right? So I could say WC-L, and then I could redirect my name in there. And that's got one. It's got 1 line. Okay, it's not super interesting. If I said WC-L and then I redirect something like Etsy password. Okay, this tells me Etsy password has 34 lines in it, and I believe that. If I say cat Etsy password, you know, I believe that, 34 lines. So in fact, when I okay, cat Etsy password, yeah. So if I counted those, there would be 34 lines. Okay, so what that redirect did was, instead of me having to type in a bunch of stuff, it redirected that that input from the file that I named. Okay, so this can be useful. Standard error. This is for error messages. So and the standard output device for error messages is also the terminal window, the command line interface, right? So since standard out and standard error both go to the command line interface by default, you can end up getting a lot of stuff in the terminal window, and sometimes you want to redirect some of that stuff somewhere else just so it doesn't clutter things. And so you can use the 2 and then the redirect sign. So the 2 indicates standard error, and then the greater than sign, the single redirect, that's going to redirect any error lines, any error output to wherever you redirect it to. And normally you'd redirect to a file. And then similar to standard out, if you say 2 and then 2 redirects, then that's going to append your file. So the next example hopefully makes that pretty clear. So here we're doing ls, and we're lsing some file, and here some file doesn't exist, right? So and we'll see this in action here in a minute. ls some file, and then we redirect the error to error file, and then we cat error file, and you get this error message: cannot access some file, no such file or directory. So that means some file didn't exist. And then here, do same thing again, ls some file, and then 2, and then double redirect into error file, then cat error file, and we got 2 lines now because we did the double redirect. So there's a new line added to it. So that just shows that these error messages. So if I do an ls, you see there's no file in here called some file. So if I were to say ls some file, I would get an error message. Maybe I don't want to see all these error messages, so I might say ls some file, and then I redirect standard error into error file. Okay, now nothing came out to the CLI, but if I cat error file, okay, there's my error. And then if I ls some file again, and then I append, or I could even say ls some other file, and then I'm going to redirect or to double redirect in order to append. Okay, and then if I cat error file, see, so the first time I got this cannot access some file, and then I appended it with this new error message from when I tried to ls another different file that doesn't exist. This might be a little bit more clear than the example on the slide. Okay, and you can combine this stuff. So you can combine any combination of standard in, standard out, and standard error redirection at the same command. So you can have some file with the output going to file list and any error messages going to error file. And this is what you see more often, right? You're going to do something. It might be a single command, might be multiple commands, but you want the output to go to some file. And then if there's any errors that happen upon the way, like files are not found or whatever, then you might want to redirect that error message into the error file. So you can do multiple, and then if I wanted to at the end, I could do an input, standard input to get to, if this was a command that required input, I could have standard input on the end. So I can sort of chain these standard in, standard out, standard error. Okay, the pipe command is important. Once you sort of grasp the value of the pipe command, you'll use it a lot. So the pipe character, and this is it's generally on your keyboard. It's generally above the enter key, so it's on the right side of the keyboard. It's the straight up and down character, and it's in Linux you'll hear it referred to as a pipe because it allows you to send the output of one command to the input of another command. So instead of having to like redirect from standard in, you have a command that has output, and then you have that output go into the next command. So it allows you to take the output of one command and make it the input of another command. One of the most common uses of the pipe command is to send command output to the grep command. Grep is used to search grep is used to search text and find lines matching a search string. Grep, which is well, look at the man page here. So it searches for strings, grep. So grep searches for searches an input file or standard input if no files are named, right? And grep stands for something like get regular expression, and a regular expression is a search string. That's sort of Unix, Linux terminology for a search string. So so let's look at an example. Okay, so here that they in the example we cat this file called names again, and we pipe it through grep, and then we're searching for the search string su. And so this names file apparently has a couple of names in it that start with su. Okay, Sue and Susie. I don't have the names file, so I might do something like, let's say I wanted to find the information about the student account in Etsy password. So I could say cat, Etsy password. And remember, if I cat something, that's going to dump the contents to the terminal window. Okay, but this is a lot of stuff, right? So I don't want to have to read through all that stuff. I might say cat Etsy password. Let me clear this first. I might say cat Etsy password, and then I might pipe that through grep. And then I'm going to look for student. I'm going to look for the search string student. And what's going to happen here is the cat Etsy password is going to get piped as the input to this grep command. So then grep is going to search for a line that has the word student in it, and then it's going to display that line to the terminal. And there it is, right? So out of that whole Etsy password, when I did this grep student, it pulled out the stuff that the lines that have students. So this is the stuff related to the student account. Let's say I wanted to do something similar to Etsy password, but what I wanted to do is I want to find the user accounts that have /bin/bash as their shell. And remember, that's part of Etsy password. It's the last field in Etsy password. And if somebody has a bin bash shell, that means that they're a user that can log into the system. So if they have bin bash, they can log in. And maybe I want to identify the users of this system that are able to log in. So I might say something like cat, keep typing Kate, Etsy password, and then I'm going to grep bin bash. And let's see what we get. Okay, so this gives me the root user. So the root user can log in. This user called Ubuntu can log in. And then student can log in. Okay, so this is helpful information, right? And this was easy to find by by doing this grep, doing these chain command. I could have just said cat etc password, and then I could have looked line by line, look for the bin bash. I might have missed one of them, but when I use the grep command, it's going to find every instance of this cert string, and so that is doing this kind of thing, piping the contents of one command to another command can be very helpful. Okay, so here's an example. You can pipe multiple times, right? So here we cat names, and then we grep su, and then we sort. Okay, so let's do that over here. So we're gonna cat etc password. We're gonna find the people who are gonna log in, and we want to see those in alphabetical order. So we're gonna run that through sort, and now we get in alphabetical order root, student, and Ubuntu. And if this is a longer list, maybe the alphabeticalness would be more important, but you get the idea, hopefully. Okay, and the last thing we're going to talk about is the T command. The T can be used to send output to both standard out and a file at the same time. So the syntax is you have your whatever command you're going to do, and then you're going to pipe into T, and then you have an output file name, and so the command is going to happen, and then the results of the command go into T, and then the output is going to get pushed to standard out and to the output file name. So here's an example. They do an ls, and then they're going to pipe that to T, and they're going to put the results in output. And so here's the results. The ls command is going to display the listing, the file listing, but it also sends that file listing into this file called output. So now if you cat output, you're going to see that same list of stuff. So so if I did an ls all by itself, I would get this. If I did an ls, and then I piped it into T file list. Okay, now I get the ls, and I also get this thing file list on the list. So now if I cat file list, I get the same thing. So that's just a way of causing the output to go to both standard out and to a file at the same time. Okay, and that's it. So so with that, I commend you to complete the lab exercise, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.